Hello, everybody. Welcome to our lesson on the introduction to the nervous system, one of our last systems that we're going to be covering this unit. So the nervous system has three jobs. And just so we're clear before moving forward, the nervous system is mostly made up of one major organ, which is your brain, right, housed inside of your skull, and then all of the nerves that go throughout your entire body. Okay, so your nervous system is mainly the brain, but then it has all these nerves that go down your spinal cord, right, and then connect to every single part of your body, from your fingers to your toes to all of your internal organs. So the first job of the nervous system is it gathers and processes information. So it gets information and then the brain almost like turns these signals into something that makes sense. The second job of the nervous system is respond to stimuli. And that takes us back all the way to September when we were talking about the 6 characteristics of life. So the stimuli is a change in the environment that causes a response or a reaction. And we know that one of the 6 characteristics of life is responding to something in the environment. So the nervous system is really in control of that characteristic. So I love this picture. And some of you actually included this example in your body systems check-in, but this person has a stimulus where they are something that is in the environment, and they are putting their hand down on the burner, and I realize that this looks like she is doing it very much on purpose. Hopefully that's not the case. So she puts her hand, or he, I don't really know, puts their hand on the hot burner, and the response is to pull away, right? Ouch, that hurts, that's hot. Okay, so this is a really, really, really important part of your body, because if you didn't have that job to respond to stimuli, your hand would just stay there and become extremely damaged, burned, hurt. Okay, so being able to respond to stimuli is going to be something that keeps us alive. The third job of the nervous system is to maintain homeostasis. And again, this is a characteristic of life. So the central nervous system, here is our brain right up here, and that is connected to literally everything else in your body. Okay? So this is a really cool piece because if you think of these little things that they have listed on the side, you would think that, like, for example, the stomach right here is part of the digestive system, which it is, but it's also connected to the central nervous system. So the nervous system really helps make sure that your stomach is digesting. This one is part of the excretory system, your bladder. Your brain and your nervous system make sure that you can hold your bladder so that you just don't pee whenever your bladder has urine waste in it. That would not be a very great thing on the human body. So it helps to relax the bladder, constrict the bladder. So even though the bladder, the stomach are part of different systems, the brain is still connected to that. And that was really a big part with our human body check-in, is showing that these systems don't work by themselves. If you had one without the other, they're not going to work. Their nervous system is really cool, and it's so cool and so specialized that it actually has its own type of cells. And we know that every part of our body has different cells, right? Skin cells, eyeball cells, liver cells, muscle cells, but most of them look very similar to these, which are the ones that we've seen before, right? We've seen these stages of mitosis. We've got our chromosomes here, right? They're separating anaphase, metaphase, all that good stuff. I know, bringing horse memories back from earlier on in the year. Neurons, on the other hand, are like this. They're very cool. They have a bunch of different parts in them that are actually going to contribute to how the system works. So we're just going to quick label our structure of a neuron, since it's a little bit different than what we're used to for our cells. And you're going to have to bear with me a little bit because it's hard to write very neatly on this. But I want to call attention to something that doesn't even have a line to it. And it's this middle part right here. And I bet if you were in the classroom, you would tell me that this is the, whoops, not a neuron, that this is the nucleus, right? And then that's going to be the part that has all the DNA, right? Houses everything, controls the rest of the cell. Yes, a neuron still has a nucleus. The rest of it is different though, okay? So all of this part right in here, this is the cell body. I'm trying to type this with my fingers so it's a little bit faster. Cell body. Sure, look at that. Looks fantastic. Cell booty. Okay. That says body. Okay, let me try again. You guys, I should really just edit this out, but we've come too far. All right, cell body. There we go. All right, so that is still going to have other things in there, ribosomes, all the stuff that we've talked about. Okay, so it still houses all of that stuff. We have all of these like edges around here that are kind of like leaves of a tree, and those are called our dendrites. Okay, dendrites. This is a D. Okay, and those grab signals from different parts of the body. Okay, so they're almost like these fingertips that come out and like grab all the different things. Okay, this is the axon. This is where the signal goes through. Okay, and then this is the axon terminal. And that is going to connect to another neuron. So a signal can just keep going, and it's going to go from one neuron to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, until it gets where it needs to. Okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about that path in a minute. So we saw in the very first function of the nervous system that its job is to process and receive information. So we have to make sure that we know how this signal is going to get from cell to cell to cell. Okay? So there's this thing called a synapse. And this is a gap between the two neuron cells, and the signal is actually going to be able to jump from neuron to neuron. It's a super complicated process. I learned about it in college, and I bet I couldn't tell you a whole lot about it. Here's the synapse, right? So you have this signal, it goes here and it goes whoop, and then it jumps to the next one. That's what the fingertips are for. They kind of catch all of those signals, okay? So just important to know that there is this thing called a synapse. Lastly, there are 3 types of neurons that we need to mention. The first one are sensory neurons. So this is going to be how your body gets signals from the environment to the brain. Okay, so this is going to come from your 5 senses, okay, which is why they're called sensory neurons. It kind of makes sense. So an example of something that would fit into this category is going to be hearing a loud sound. Okay, so if you hear a loud noise, your sensory neurons, right, it's going to go into your ears and it's going to go through all of these different neurons till it gets to your brain, and your brain can process that sound wave, okay, and tell you, wow, that was a really big noise. Okay. You could smell freshly baked pie, or if you're not pie, pizza, you know, someone's grilling outside and you can smell it. Okay, you're going to get that signal from the environment and your brain is going to smell it and is going to react to it. Or maybe you're driving down the side of the road and you smell a skunk, and that's not a pleasant smell, right? So your brain is going to process that. You could be touching something slimy, so you touch that and you get the feeling of it, right? Maybe you know, we're not in class, but think back to when we were. You're sitting in your seat, you put your hand under your desk, and you feel gum that some person inconsiderately has put there before you have sat there, right? So the touching of your fingertips is going to send a signal all the way up to your brain to process that. The second type of neuron are going to be your motor neurons. So this is signals from your brain to your other body parts, okay? So you receive some sort of stimuli from the environment, and then the motor neurons are going to decide how you are going to react to that, okay? So you hear the loud noise, right? And then you jump or something like that, okay? So a loud noise could have been maybe a fire alarm. Okay, so your sensory neurons process that loud noise. Your motor neurons are going to tell your body what to do next. Okay, so are you going to stand up? Are you going to cover your ears? Okay, so those are motor neurons that are telling the rest of your body what to do. My examples on here, I have picking up a book, right? So those are motor neurons because they are actually doing some sort of action. Reacting to the loud noise, we just talked about that, using a fork to pick up the piece of pie that you smell, right? Or the pizza, okay? Using your hands to pick it up and eat it. The last type of neuron, they're just called interneurons, and they're going to connect the other two. Okay, so they're kind of like the mediators in between the sensory neurons and the motor neurons. Okay? This is the last slide. There is another video that you should watch next that is me explaining the different parts of the brain. So make sure you watch that next before you do your other assignments.